There's something I used to experience quite a lot when I was running my trading business in Hong Kong. And that is that you would come up against a buyer, maybe at a trade show, and they would love your products. They would be fine with your pricing. They would love the design, maybe the packaging. They would like your entire offer. And they would like you as well. You would get on incredibly well with them, but they just wouldn't place an order. And over a period of time, you maybe would just let it slip and think to yourself, this particular buyer is never going to order from me. And they slip from your mind. But we must never forget that most buyers already have an existing supply chain. They already have suppliers. And to switch their supply to you is a risk for them. And for a lot of suppliers, it is a risk that is just not worth taking. I experienced this myself on multiple occasions, actually, especially in my early years, whereby I would be having great conversations with a prospective buyer. Everything seemed to be aligned, pricing, everything. And things would just go nowhere, no orders. And this cycle would repeat itself. And I came to the conclusion and realized after a period of time, I realized that I'm not just competing with other suppliers. And I think this is the key distinction that I'm just about to make. You're not just keep competing with other suppliers, you're competing with other relationships as well. So your prospective customer is more than likely got a relationship with an existing supplier, which maybe goes back many, many, many years. And just for them to be seen talking to you could be considered to be an act of disloyalty. And if they even take that one step further and they start ordering from you, then their existing supply chain will become aware of that over a period of time. Because I think um, buying and selling on the international stage to some degree is transparent. You can see who's buying from who. You can see the packaging that's being used. Not all of the relationships are transparent, but people talk and you get to know what the situation really is. So if somebody suddenly takes on board a new supplier rather than go to their existing supply chain, then that could be considered to be an act of disloyalty. So if you are a new business competing on the international stage, you will come up against this issue a lot by default because a lot of your prospective customers will already have established supply chains. They will already be working with suppliers, which are your direct competitors, and they would have had those relationships probably in most cases for many, many, many years. And I think one of the mistakes that new suppliers make is that they try to take the attitude that they are going to replace or they want to replace that supplier that that prospective customer already has. And that is a big mistake. It is just far too much risk for a new buyer to take on board. And I think the best approach, and this was the approach that I used to adopt, was to try to position yourself alongside your competitors rather than take the attitude that I want to knock them out of the equation and I want to take the business. That is not a realistic proposition. You have to position yourself alongside the competition rather than as a direct competitor to the competition. There is, in fact, another layer to this which is really important to mention, and I think it's really applicable for relatively new businesses as well that are trying to sort of break into the international supply chain, if you like. And that is that not all customers are customers. And it is very much to do with the issue that I've just been talking about. The fact is that a lot of your potential customers already have long, stable relationships with your competitors, other suppliers, and they may well be checking out you as a company in terms of all of the products that you're offering, your pricing, your complete offer actually, but have no intention of ordering from you at all. And in fact, they are on a reconnaissance mission, they are on a scouting mission effectively for their existing supplier, your competitor. And they will go back to that supplier, feed back all that information to your competitor, to that supplier, as a way to try to strengthen the relationship with the supplier and display their loyalty. And I came up against this situation on several occasions, actually. There was one particular buyer from Canada that did this, and I realized maybe about 6 months later that this is what had happened, and it was a really valuable learning experience for me, and it changed my approach to doing business, especially at trade shows. And the approach sometimes tends to be I'll do the trade show, I'll put all my products out on the booth for everybody to see. And my attitude will be I want to try to sell everything to everybody. And that is a big mistake because a lot of the information that you're putting out of there, yes, you have to sell it, but you have to try to protect yourself at the same time as well. So what I used to do was I had a lot of what I would call existing items and some new products which are out on the shelves. And then I would also have some products, some brand new products which I wasn't displaying to everybody that I would maybe keep in a sample box or in a bag that I would only show to really trusted potential buyers, people that I felt I could trust. And admittedly, when we're talking about trust, we don't always get it right, but you have to take a chance sometimes. So, with potential buyers that I felt I could trust, I would maybe take them to the next level and I would show them new designs, new products that I was working on. So I would take a step-by-step approach to communication and relationship building. And if I felt that I didn't trust someone, I could just step back and I could just allow them to look at all the existing items in my booth without any great fear of any substantial damage being done. Trade shows are incredibly competitive. So everybody is fighting for a piece of the pie, if you like. Suppliers are trying to take on board as many new customers as possible. Buyers are trying to find the best products for themselves so that they can put their companies ahead of everybody else. So everybody's fighting for an edge over everybody else. And because of that, you have to be very, very mindful of the information that you have. And you have to control the conversations that you have with everybody that comes to your booth. And for me, I took the attitude that not every single conversation is equal. So you must never, ever take a standardized approach to speaking to buyers. You must try to evaluate the importance of the buyer in your mind. You must try to evaluate the risk that that buyer and the opportunity that that buyer poses to your company. And then you have to decide how to answer various different questions, what information you should and should not share with a prospective buyer and an existing buyer as well. That is absolutely critical. That will protect your business as much as it can be protected and give you the very best opportunity for growth in the future. So, my final message would be that your job is not just to sell, it is to evaluate all of the relationships around you and realize that when you are in fact selling, you are not in fact selling into an empty space. You are in fact stepping into somebody else's relationship. You must keep that very much at the forefront of your mind, and that will help you to sell in a much safer and more productive way. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you again in the next one.